When we're talking about modern day horror films, A24 has some of the scariest and most mind-bending to date. But we're going to take it a step further and make it a bit worse because I know at least one of their movies is based off of a very true terrifying story. So today we're going to get into the story that inspired the 2019 film, The Lighthouse. If you've never seen The Lighthouse, it follows two men who are secluded away in a lighthouse for 4 weeks. They have no one but each other to keep them company and try to keep themselves sane as they are in this isolated environment. It is a psychologically exhausting movie. It really is. But there is a terrifying story that inspired this film, and we're going to talk all about it. Now, The Lighthouse, which is A24's, is streaming on Max, but there's also another film streaming on Tubi simply titled Lighthouse, and it's about the same thing. I haven't seen it, but I wanted to mention it in case you guys were interested. So let's get into the true story. For about as long as anyone can remember, people have been traveling by ships, and lighthouses are a very key component in ship travel because they are there to keep you safe and to warn you about things. These lighthouses have seen several ships make it safely to shore, but they have also seen some gruesome instances where the ships do not make it to shore. These lighthouses have some trauma. They have seen some stuff. The job of a lighthouse keeper is lonely and quite honestly very dangerous. And that specific job title is what this story is all about, is what it's all centered around, and we're going to be traveling all the way back to 1891 to begin it. In a small lighthouse about 20 miles off of the coast west of Wales are two men, two lighthouse keepers. So it doesn't take long whenever they get into the seclusion of this lighthouse for one of the men to begin feeling very sick, and they're complaining openly about it, and the other man there tries his best to help him, but it is getting worse and worse. So eventually things are getting so bad that the not sick man ends up sending a distress call from the lighthouse hoping that someone will come, but no one ever does. And that man ends up passing away from his illness in that lighthouse. So what do you do with the body of the deceased coworker at this point? Well, he kept him in the living room with him for several days because he wasn't sure what to do either. But pretty soon, like I said, no one came. Decomposition started to set in, and this was really freaking out this man. He did not want to see it. It was sad, it was scaring him a little, and he could not keep that in his living room any longer. He considered his options, and one of the main ones that he considered doing was tossing his body into the sea, but he was worried that he would be accused of murder, so he couldn't do that. The reason he thought that he may be accused for murder was because the two would bicker and fight quite often, and he knew that it would probably look like he did something. And he didn't. He actually didn't. This man was just sick, so he had to leave the body with him. So he was a pretty crafty fellow, and he ended up being able to make a coffin for this man, and he put his body inside of it and left it vertically, upright outside. So he wasn't having that inside anymore. But pretty soon after this happened, a pretty bad storm hit, and it ripped that homemade coffin all to pieces. And whenever he would look outside the window to check on it, he would see that man's arm up, as if he was beckoning him to come. He was stuck in that lighthouse for 4 months. There was no Morse code that could be signaled from lighthouses, nothing like that. And even if they could, the waters were rocky and the ship couldn't land close by anyways. So he was stuck there for 4 months. He sent out a distress signal, but it didn't matter. There was nothing that he could do, and he would just watch as ships would pass by like he wasn't there, like he wasn't needing help for 4 months. Pretty soon ships did notice, and they would attempt to land at this lighthouse but were unable to, and they reported just seeing a man leaning against a railing of the lighthouse. So the one living man still kept up his work in the lighthouse. He would make sure the light stayed burning, everything stayed the way it should be for all of these months. Several months passed, again past those 4 months, and finally a ship landed at the lighthouse. The man was finally relieved of his duties, but being alone for that long had led him to total insanity. His physical and mental appearance were so altered that no one recognized him in his life anymore. He was completely unrecognizable. Due to this instance, the rules of the lighthouse changed dramatically, and now there must be 3 people there at all times. But now most lighthouses are pretty automatic, and there's only crews there for a little bit of time for maintenance because this situation happened. And I'm sure it wasn't the only situation, but it's one that gained a lot of notoriety. I'm sure there have been a lot of accidents that occurred due to lighthouses. So that is the absolutely sad and gut-wrenching story that inspired this film. This was more sad than scary. I know I typically do scary things, but isolation alone is pretty horrific. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time.